And you also need to ask yourself, why is this happening now? You know, what are some of the forces that are bringing the technology industry to say, hey, we've got to come up with these new types of characters to run our services or our applications? And I just want to touch on things that are happening kind of from the consumer side, and then also what's happening from a technology and research side. Anyone, raise your hand if you use a messaging, like, you know, Kik, Facebook Messenger and stuff. Yeah, most of the people here. My old company I used to work for, eMarketer, they have forecasts that even now, at the end of this year, 1.6 billion people around the world are using messaging apps, and that figure is going to climb to 2 billion by 2018. Already, the top 4 messaging platforms have larger regular user bases than the top 4 social networks. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I tell you, it's hard with jet lag. And if you look at some of their monthly average use and daily average use, this is where the audience is. There's been more and more people who are using messaging apps. But by the way, for your messaging platforms, raise your hand if you use it on a daily basis. Okay. Now, think of all the apps on your phone. Yeah. I'm sorry? You are correct. There is WhatsApp. There is all kind. You're correct. I will fix that in the next slide. WhatsApp's not there. That's one of the dangers of doing things on the airplane. But it's because of these populations that we're getting statements like this, that you should be able to speak, to converse, to message brands, stores, data as easily as you converse with other people. And this is one of the driving forces that has got at least Facebook 90 degrees into messaging applications. And so on that side, there's this gigantic growth that you can't ignore as storytellers, but also to turn, there's also been a lot of advances on the technology side. Any Trekkie fans? Okay. Now, since 1966, you've heard Mr. Scott talk to the computer. And this, recently, is one of my favorite clips. Let's hope we get some sound. Computer? Wait a minute, let's go back. This is worth hearing. This is in 1986, 30 years ago. And they're trying to get onto a original Mac.
Computer. Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
The keyboard. How quaint.
Now, Mr. Scott is probably about 6 or 7 years old today. But by the time a kid in elementary school is that age, is probably going to have a similar reaction if we say just use a keyboard. They're going to say, wow, quill pen. I'm writing a postcard. Because we've always wanted to be able to speak to our technology. It is actually much more intuitive than using the computer. And does anyone use voice to text? You talk into your phone and you send the text. Well, this is basically what happens. The sound file gets chewed up by a neural network. And for so long, our accuracy for speech recognition, and this is an important distinction. Speech recognition is the computer can pick out words from sounds. Okay? It hovered at about 80%, which on one hand you say is pretty good, but at the same time you can't do a lot with it. But with neural networks, and especially with some of the advances in deep learning technologies over the last 5 to 8 years, we've raised that to about 95%. Once you get to that level, then you can start doing more interesting stuff with voice. And this is Andrew Ng, who was poached from Google by Baidu, and they are going balls to the wall as far as how to make different dialects of Chinese understood by machines. And so you've got this massive messaging population that's mainly acting through the platforms I was speaking about. Plus you have a dramatic improvement in voice recognition. And that's now being joined by the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things, in my opinion, is a new killer environment. And by killer environment, I mean it gives us the ability to encode personal and shared meaning with objects, with locations, with living things like pets or plants. And if you read a lot of the popular press, they're focused on the things. They're sort of saying, hey, once I hook the car up to a network, the car can, send telemetry back to the manufacturer in case there's a problem. Okay, there's a business there, but that's, in my opinion, looking at Internet of Things like a microscope. It's where the network adds value to a product, and that's a good business. But I think the far bigger opportunity is when products add value to networks. It's when you start looking at it almost through a telescope. And that's where the object is interacting with other objects. It's interacting with locations. It's throwing off a lot of the data, just like looking at the Netflix data that's being thrown off by what people are watching, that helps inform us to make decisions. And when you look at things through a telescope, that starts to really open up new opportunities, not only for technology development, but also the stories that you need to tell.